feedback from someone last meeting that my mic should be closer.
Oh.
Try that. All right. The time of 4:30 having passed us, I am going to go ahead and call to order the July 25th, 2023 meeting of the Common Council Executive Committee and ask staff to call the roll.
President Curry,
Here.
Vice President Figueroa Cole. Here. Alder Vitiver is excused. Alder Madison. Here. Alder Govindarajan. Alder Conklin. Here. Alder Evers.
Here.
And Alder Bennett is excused. You have quorum.
Thank you, Karen. That'll move us to approval of minutes from our last meeting of July 11th, and I would entertain a motion. It is moved and seconded. Unless I see or hear otherwise, I will assume unanimous consent. Seeing none, the minutes are approved. We do not have any registrants for public comment, so move us on to disclosures and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Do we have any disclosures or recusals? Seeing none, we'll keep moving along for our items for consideration. Agenda item number 2, legislative file 79020, addressing the 2024 council office budget request. Sorry, take it away, Karen.
Yes, so the council office is recommending that we submit a cost to continue budget for this year. So no changes to the budget. And the documents are provided as attachments to your agenda.
Do you mind sharing, I know we get emails about it, but in terms of the timeline and everything, why it's before CCEC today?
So traditionally, the council office budget then is authorized by CCEC, then we submit it. I did request an extension to Friday so that it could come before CCEC today. So then we'll turn in all of our materials by Friday, and that will go then to the mayor for when she's making her executive budget. And so that'll be our agency request.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? I believe Betsy from Finance is also with us if there are finance-specific related questions. Alder Govindarajan.
Would this be the budget where we discuss alder pay increases and the intern pay increase? Or like the intern stipend increase? I don't know.
I can. Alder pay increases are not in this budget because my attorney Haas can explain a little bit better about the timeline of that. If CCC member wants to propose an increase to the $250 per alder that's currently in the council office budget for intern stipends, then this would be the time, and I would just request that folks, if you wouldn't mind taking a formal vote on any request like that so that I have a clear plan of direction that I can get into the paperwork ASAP. So hope that helps.
And this is for next year, right?
Yes, this is the 2024 budget.
Okay.
So just to clarify, so any increases in alder pay could not go into effect until after the 2025 election because pay cannot be increased during the term of alders. If there are any changes, though, to, for instance, increase money available for alders, that I believe that would either have to be offset somewhere else in the budget. I mean, we have directives from the mayor about what we're supposed to submit and stay within parameters. So Karen, the council office would have to figure out how to either modify the budget or ask the mayor to include additional funds for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Govindarajan. Alder Wahili?
Thank you. So the intern 15,000, that could be amended this year. And the intern could be used between September and December before the 2024 budget, since this budget was 2023. Correct?
If there's any amendment to this year's budget,
So there was amendment, but it wasn't, it never passed.
okay, right, so then
So we,
you have whatever was budgeted for this year. And then what Karen's talking about is the budget that would be for next year. So increasing money available for interns for 2024. It wouldn't be for this year.
so there are two questions. One is 2024.
Right.
That's new budget that we're asking Karen to put in the 2024 budget. But there's 15,000 budget amendment that's still in the council office. So that 15,000, do we have the opportunity to bring back for budget amendment to be utilized for the interns?
For this year.
May I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah, sure.
So if I'm following correctly, we have the basically we have that 91,000 in our budget, sitting in our budget that we aren't able to use because the ordinance to increase alder pay didn't pass. I believe if there are 15 votes to use any of that money for something else before the end of 2023, that could be done. So someone could put in a proposal to take some of that 91,000 and, for example, like you're saying, take 15,000 of that 91 and put it into intern. For 2023, 15 vote item. If it passes by 15 votes, then you would have that money in the 2023 budget, but only in the 2023 budget because our cost to continue is based on our current budget, which is right now is $5,000 for alder interns, and so that carries over. But if you put in 15,000, you're right, it would be September through December, and then it's gone. And I also, so I hope that I understand that correctly. And then also for 2024, another thing I failed to mention, you will have another chance during budget time for everyone who's new. You'll have another chance during budget time to also amend this budget as well as any other agency's budget. So if something develops between now and then, you will have opportunities.
Thank you.
Hope that helps.
And then if I want to ask a follow-up, Attorney Haas, so basically any budget increase for alders, it has to happen after election, correct?
Right, so, it cannot take effect until after the next election. Now, you can pass an ordinance anytime to change the pay, it just can't go into effect.
So it will be included in 2025 budget?
Right,
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Thank you, Alder Healy. Vice President Figueroa Cole?
Attorney House, can you please add the second part of that situation with respect to alder pay? It's not just putting the money on the budget, it's also changing the ordinance. I think that's the primary. We can change the ordinance at any time. The one is not so can you please explain for the new people what that means?
Sure, and under state law, the pay for alders cannot be raised during the term of an alders. Now, and so the ordinance is worded like as effective X date, this is the pay for alders. And so to change that pay, we would need to say effective, April of 2025 or after the election in 2025, the pay is increased to X amount. The only exception would be if you could set a pay to increase for any new alder that comes in because of a vacancy before that time, but it could not increase the pay for any current incumbents until there's another election.
So again, in essence, there's two separate votes, the money part and the ordinance, so there's two separate issues that need to be taken into account.
Correct.
Okay. And I don't know, I have another point, but it's just a discussion item. I can come back in the queue later.
Okay, thank you. We do have Alder Evers in the queue. Alder Evers?
Yeah, getting the focus of the discussion back to the agenda item, which is discussing what we're going to do in terms of guidance for Karen to put forth this budget request. I'd like to make a motion if that's all right.
Go ahead, Alder Evers.
I'd like to move a recommendation and a request to council staff or chief of staff to submit a budget request for $1,121,583 as stated in the document presented to us this evening.
All right, thank you, Alder Evers. So just to clarify, it is approving what's before us, which is the cost continue budget. We
That
do
is
ha-
correct.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Alder Govindarajan for discussion.
Would it be possible for me to motion to increase next year's intern stipend to 1,000 per alder? Oh, then if I can, then I would like to make that motion.
Okay, so Alder Govindarajan would like to amend the current motion on the floor to, say that again, I'm sorry?
To increase the alder intern stipend to $1,000 per alder.
$1,000 per alder. Ooh, I'm terrible at math, so
3,000.
3,000. Thank you. All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Vice President Figueroa Cole?
Discussion, but just, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to kind of discuss. So I'll second it, but
Okay. And did you have a discussion point, which your
Yes.
hand was raised for? Okay, go ahead, please.
okay, so I don't, I mean, again, for no discussion. I think if you want to increase that bucket, that's all good to go, but I don't think we need to be doing that as a random thing, $1,000 or $500 or $2. I mean, I don't care what the amount is. We should analyze how much money we need. We had that money sitting there already all year and we haven't used it. We already know how this program is going to work. We should put it to a test and figure out how many people we can get. We have $5,000. Not all 20 elders are going to use this. I'm not going to use it. So if you have a project that you want to work on and you want to use my $200, then let me know and we can bucket the money like that. But based on we are being asked to reduce, well, everybody was asked to reduce like a 1% on their cost of continue. I don't see how adding more trouble to it, it's going to be productive at this time. I will support it with some analysis behind it. Like this is, we ran the project for a year and it was very successful and we can maintain this for another year to come and we should add X amount of money. Then I will say, oh, sure. But at this moment, I wouldn't support that. That's what I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President. Alder Evers?
Thank you, Chair. I won't be supporting this either. This adds $15,000 to a budget request where we're asked to actually reduce 1% from last year's cost to continue. Again, I don't think we have the basis for doing so. We don't have enough evidence. We don't know how many people actually have need of this relative to whether it's all 20, whether it's 5, whether it's 3, whether it's 2. So it just feels a bit random and it's not appropriate at this time in terms of the budget process. So I won't be supporting this.
Thank you, Alder Evers. Alder Govindarajan?
I understand that. Like, that makes sense to me. I think a lot of it is just because of the timing of how, like, when you can maybe get an intern. Like, a lot of it is going to be, like, college students or school students, and a lot of that might be September, October, when, like, they're back from summer. When does the 2024 budget go into effect, I guess, might be a question, because that might also help with me understanding this motion a bit.
January 1, 2024.
Okay, yeah, okay, I thought so. So in that case, like, the 23 budget, like for the most part, like the first 9 months, we're not going to be using the $5,000 because it was. I mean, a couple of them might. I'm hoping to, but I think the last 3 months of the year is when we might not use all $5,000, but I think there's still an argument to be made that next year we could use most of it, if not all, I would assume, especially because we've had alders like myself trying to like reach out to others and be like, hey, you have $250. I would really love to have that. Things like that. So, I don't know. That's
Thank you, Alder. And in my privilege as chair, just want to make a point that we do have the Alder intern matching program before us for approval tonight. And so seeing the similarity in what we're talking about with the budget request right now, just want to make that point. Vice President Figueroa Cole.
So anyhow, again, you always can, through the budget process, you had time until November to create an amendment and prepare to present to the 20 of us an amendment to the budget. So this is not a no, but at this moment for this resolution, it will be a no for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Govindarajan again?
I can rescind that motion then if we can deal with it till November.
Okay, thank you, Alder. All right, so we have a recension of adding to the budget. So we're back to the original motion of approving the cost to continue budget that is before us. Had questions and discussion. I'm not seeing any hands. Safe to assume unanimous consent unless I see or hear otherwise. Not seeing any hands or raised hands in chambers. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you for that, Karen. Thank you, Betsy, for joining us in case there were questions. Moves us to agenda item 3, legislative file 78544, adopting the 2024 Common Council meeting dates, and I'll turn it over again to Karen.
Thank you. So every year, CCEC also is asked to review the upcoming year's Common Council meeting dates. This was introduced to council, referred to CCEC, and then back to council with your recommendation. If you click through into the resolution accompanying the item, it explains the parameters under which we are allowed to operate, the prohibited holidays that are by ordinance, the election, the things we take into account. And so we came up with this calendar, taking all those things into account. You have some attachments. I'd like to give some kudos to Liz, our legislative process liaison, for creating a visual calendar as well to help folks be able to understand the meeting dates in context instead of just a list, which I think is very nice. So that's what's going on there. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And second your kudos. There was a lot of time and consideration that went into looking at all the dates and lots of back and forth emails. So thank you all for your work on that. Any questions? Discussion item? Okay. Without any questions, I would entertain a motion.
Dates for the upcoming meetings, 2024.
Thank you. Moved by Vice President Figueroa Cole, seconded by Alder Conklin. Discussion.
I don't know why I'm red, but I'll throw in there. I will just recommend for people to bookmark that link to the calendar. It was very well put together, and there's a lot of work behind it, like you has been mentioned. So you may want to add it to your favorites on your browser. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any other hands for discussion. Unless I see or hear otherwise, I will, oh my gosh, what's the word again? Assume unanimous consent. Seeing none, that motion carries. Thank you. I'll move us along to agenda item 4, legislative file 78594, amending section 2.025 of the Madison General Ordinances to remove the notification requirement if an alder will be absent from the city for 5 or more days. Correct me, am I turning this over to Karen or to Attorney Haas?
You can start with the sponsor if you want. It's Alder Figueroa Cole.
All right, or also the sponsoring alder, Vice President Figueroa Cole. Would you like to speak on the?
Sure, the process, the intention here is to streamline the existing process. Since we move into a phase where we are no longer required to be in person, we have the opportunity to be accessing meetings from anywhere that we are. So the intent here is to, one, refresh the memory of elders that we need to notify to council office when we're not going to be in a meeting, and two, just leave it as simple as that. When you are not going to be in a meeting, just notify the council office. If you are traveling or if you are visiting somebody, whatever, you're out of the city and you're still making a meeting, that doesn't require a notification. But if you're going to miss a meeting, you need to communicate to the council office on the Thursday before the meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. So it's just like cleaning up the ordinance a little bit.
Thank you for that context, Vice President. If there's nothing else to add, I guess we can move into questions. I have one. Just be historical context from Karen or council office staff about current adherence to specifically the 9 a.m. on the Thursday before the absence is occurring. And I know you prefaced with a reminder to us all of what the current ordinance is in your description, Vice President, but also what happens if that specific timeline isn't met in regards to this proposed change.
Thank you. So I actually I don't have data on when the excuse absence notifications do come in, because they've often come in to Debbie, for example, or Liz, or so I'm not privy to all of them. But I do know that if we get them in time, we get them on the agenda. So if you notice on the council agenda for tonight, there's an excused absence listed. That's really as far as I understand it, one of the things that's really the reason for the 9 a.m. is we'd like to be able to get the name on the agenda, and also to let the clerk and the mayor or the chair of the council meeting know, so that if they have any questions about quorum, they can be prepared, maybe do a quorum check, so on and so forth. I'm sorry, what was the other half of your question?
I guess without the date, you may not have the answer for this, but I read this as it pertains to Common Council specifically, and obviously follows the tracking of the timeline for the agenda. Obviously, if you get notification after that, I guess the question would be, would you still publish that? And then a second question I just added, and then I'll stop because there's other alders in the queue, does this pertain just to Common Council, or does this pertain to all committee meetings, PCCs?
Right. Okay, thank you. Yes. So I would have to consult with my staff to find out exactly what they do when it comes in after 9 a.m., but before the agenda comes out, because it's likely that the clerk could put it on the agenda if that happens to be the time that for example, if the agenda is not ready yet and we're still working on it and someone sends in an excused absence at noon and we let the clerks know, it's very likely that the clerks might put it on the next version of the agenda, the next draft of the agenda. I'm not sure though, so I wouldn't be able to say definitively without speaking to my staff, or maybe if a clerk's office staff, for example. And then the other question is, first, from what I understand, the ordinance, and this I might look to Attorney Haas, the ordinance refers to council meetings, as far as I understand. So we have, as a courtesy, if an alder says, "Hey, I'm going to be in excused absence for council and Parks Commission and EDC, usually our staff will loop the relevant staff from those committees in to just let them know. But as far as I understand from the ordinance, this is just a courtesy that we've been doing for everyone.
Thank you. Did anyone from the clerk's office or Attorney Haas want to add anything?
Just to clarify, the proposed ordinance would simply remove the requirement for an alder to notify the council staff if they were going to be out of the city for 5 or more consecutive days. It would not remove the requirement for notification if alders were going to miss a council meeting. And it does not speak at all to notification if alders will miss a meeting of a BCC, except under the current ordinance, if they will miss a meeting because they will be out of the city for 5 or more days, they would have to be required to provide that notification.
Thank you, Attorney Haas. Alder Wahili for a question.
Chair, Attorney Haas, the question I have is, was there a reason behind the 5 days rule that the council member need to notify their absence? Was there a specific reason?
I'm sure that requirement has been on the books quite a while, and it might be a kind of an arbitrary choice, 5 days or 7 days or 10 days. But, my assumption is it was simply for the council staff to know, for communication's sake, and to keep an eye on whether there's going to be any quorum difficulty before the meeting occurs.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Wahili. Vice President Figueroa Cole.
So this is not coming into next council agenda, right? This is not it is on the next one? It's on the August 1st, right? Okay, so yeah, so I do have a couple more things, but I can address them later. But again, here, the core is we're not changing notifications. It's again creating awareness and streamlining the ordinance. And on regards to another reason I heard that this was in place was to when we where elders were summoned or something, like they sent you to their doors for some emergency and you needed to. And that doesn't happen anymore either. So, yeah, again, it's just a matter of cleaning up the existing ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Evers.
I didn't hear whether there was a motion to approve this. I'd like to move approval and call the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. Unless I hear or see otherwise, assume unanimous consent. Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and that will take us on to our 5th agenda item, legislative file number 78463, the Alder Intern Matching Program, and turn that back over to Karen.
Yes, so based on the instructions from CCEC at the last meeting, I integrated feedback from you all into this updated document and then sent it out to all alders for requests for feedback. And I was provided with one piece of feedback. It didn't actually necessitate any changes to the document. So what you have before you is a document that I updated based on the discussion last time available there. That second link, it's called Updated Alder Intern Matching Program. They're on the agenda.
Thank you for that, and thank you for following up on that so quickly after we asked you to at our last meeting. In that last meeting, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about alders. Alder Bennett had shared kind of her experience of working with interns during her term. Not seeing any. There's a hand raised by Vice President Figueroa Cole. Question?
No, I just motion to accept it.
Okay, yes, and the call to question. So, nope, I'm thinking of the last one. Sorry, y'all. Trying to rush and end this meeting. So a motion to accept is on the floor. Do I have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will assume unanimous consent unless I see or hear otherwise. Seeing none, that motion passes. Thank you. That'll take us to agenda item 6, legislative file 75427, council office updates. And I will turn it over to Karen.
Thank you. I'm going to quickly share my screen. I did send this out to everyone. Let's see if I can get this right. Okay. I have our upcoming staff out of office. I want to remind everyone there was a save the date that was sent out for the council retreat. And a couple more details will be provided, but it's from 10 to 1 at the New Parks Building. A meal will be served after the experiential circle with the YWCA. I have another reminder that if you have done something with your calendar, whether that means you've synced it, or whether that means you just keeping your Outlook calendar up to date, or whether that means you've decided to integrate with Calendly, please let me know. In this little survey that I set up, I'm keeping track so that I can tell staff where to look for folks' calendars and keeping them up to date. I appreciate you working with me on this. The more information we have, timely information we have on the calendars, the more effectively we can schedule with you. So thank you very much for that. I am going to be, just as an FYI, I will be sending out some doodle polls for your availability. I don't have enough calendars yet to be able to autonomously do this. So please, if you see a doodle poll from me, please answer it. I appreciate your assistance with that. There's a few different things I want to get on the books in the next, or on the schedule in the next few months. Some trainings for safety, in a policy priority discussion, a number of different things that I want to, and I need your availability for. So just as your, if you ever see anything from me that's a doodle, please respond as soon as you can. I have a little spotlight this year. This week I'm spotlighting the water utility major initiatives. Last week we talked about planning. As you can see here, the water utility has bolstered their videos and information for you. So especially if you have one of these wells in your district, you might find this useful. So I'm putting a plug in for taking a look at those, as well, of course, as the rest of the materials on the Alder orientation website. And then I have some reminders, things that we discussed and I had brought up in earlier updates, but I'm going to bring them back as reminders for a while when things are new, to have folks get reminders. You'll be seeing an email from Liz about reimbursements and your Alder accounts. She's going to be trying to send those out regularly, quarterly, I believe. So we just wanted to maybe reinforce that here as well. So there is, receipts are due within 60 days of a purchase when you're asking for reimbursement. Liz will be sending out a very similar note And you can always reach out to Liz if you have questions about that. And then, again, a reminder of the courtesy deadline for resolutions. If we're writing a resolution for you, especially if we're writing something from materials as opposed to, so if you give us a fully formed resolution that requires little to no copy editing or anything like that, that we can get into Legistar very quickly, it's less of a concern. We're asking for a courtesy deadline for when, for example, folks will give us materials and ask our assistance in creating a resolution. We would like a little time to do that. It also gives us some time to get feedback from the lead sponsor. I've noticed that that's quite helpful, the lead sponsors, as well as if we have community organizations involved or any other components. We like to have we really think a little bit of a lead up is actually beneficial to everyone, and it allows these details to be worked out. So that's that courtesy deadline. And then, of course, it's just a reminder about providing feedback. And then I continue to provide free training opportunities for alders. And I would love to hear back from you if you do attend any city provided training. I'd like to hear back from you about how it went. Would you recommend it to other alders or not? Any information that you are willing to let me know about, so then I can think about that. I would love it. The Disability Summit is coming up this week. So please let me know how it goes.
Thank you, Karen, for that, and also for emailing that ahead of time. Any questions? Seeing none. I don't need a motion on this one, right? No. Okay. That moves us along to our last agenda item, which is Legislative File 78125, future agenda items. I was just trying to look to see, I know that we talked about our next week's agenda. Keeping synergy of conversations that were started here today, or questions around Alder, increasing pay, as well as budget for interns to be added to the council office. I do know next meeting we will be meeting about, we have increased Alder pay on our agenda.
Can you see my screen?
I can. We have the spreadsheet we requested regarding the current boards, commission, committees that the city has to review as we're talking about the TFOG's recommendations to consolidate BCCs. We will have a discussion of the elected and appointed official code of ethical conduct, where we're inviting the mayor. Again, we'll have our two last standing agenda items of council office updates and future agenda items. I see Alder Evers. Go ahead, Alder.
Thank you, President Curry. Real quick, I'd like, and I don't know if this is the role for the president and vice president, but I would like some feedback and perhaps a memo, an executive memo from the committee to go out to alders to remind them of protocol. And what our meetings sometimes last unnecessarily long. And I would want to encourage my colleagues, and I mentioned this during the training sessions and the new alder orientation. If someone has a question about an agenda item, there are two ways to go, in my mind. You contact the sponsor or you contact staff. And you try to get your questions answered before the meeting. This idea that we pull things off the consent agenda, having not taken the opportunity to ask questions, adds unnecessary length to our meetings. And there have been occasions when alders would pull something off the consent agenda, and then when it comes up, choose not to ask their question at all. 2 meetings ago, lead members of the CDD staff stayed in the chambers from 6:30 to 11 p.m. only to not have their questions asked. I find that really unfortunate, even disrespectful. And I'm wondering if we can't establish some kind of accepted protocol. Of course, there's exceptions. There may be exceptions, but it's a matter of respect and it's a matter of decorum. It helps our meetings go more quickly so that we're not in the chambers at 11 o'clock, midnight or later unnecessarily. And so I'll stop there. I wonder if that could not be a discussion item in the future.
Thank you for the question and context, Alder Evers. Just a bit of context for CCEC members and leading into conversations following into next week. We do have a presentation before us tonight that Attorney Haas will give. Those of you who are in chambers should see the laminated copy of our elected and appointed official ethical code of conduct. And that was requested specifically by council leadership to be printed and laminated and left at chambers as a visual representation and reminder of not necessarily this current cohort of council that created and approved it, but as we were elected and sworn in on April 18th, was something that we all agreed to and are taking our oath of office. And so just in other BCCs, knowing that we have so many of them, we've heard feedback that other committees have discussed this. It should be discussed at least on an annual basis, is supposed to be serving as a point of accountability and a reminder, again, of that oath that we've taken, as well as reminding ourselves when we are in our capacities, whether that's in chambers, whether that's in a neighborhood meeting, et cetera, of the conduct that we've all agreed to abide by. And while it doesn't explicitly talk about the manner in which we ask questions or use the consent agenda document as a way to inform the public about maybe policy issues that we as alders personally, our neighbors, our constituents are concerned about, there are definitely intersectional themes throughout the document. So I will definitely take into heed your request for a memo, but I think in some of the intentionality behind coordinating our upcoming Alder retreat, for instance, having the discussion here at Common Council in a couple hours or so regarding why it was created, some historical context, and also some reminders from our city attorney, I think can help drive that. And then again, it will return to us next week and hopefully be joined by the mayor, who obviously as chair of Common Council meetings serves a very important role in how we're consistently reminding ourselves and holding ourselves accountable to those certain aspects of our job that can make things a little bit more efficient for all of us. So hopefully, I think I'm taking that as feedback too of some report out, and we'll take that into consideration to provide some more updates about some of the infrastructure things that council leadership is working with Chief of Staff and Council Office as well as our peers on. Alder Wahili?
Thank you, Chair. So my comment is a little bit disagreement with Alder Evers. And the reason why is, it's not one size fits all. We have different alders from different walks of life, different background, different, professional background. And it's not fair to assume that everyone is able to do what other alders are able to do because they're full-time, spending time in the agenda. So secondly, I see as the reason why there's an ordinance where, even at the last minute, we can be able to pull things out from the consent agenda. And that's a reason. So I think we should be mindful that others are not at the same level as us in terms of how they do the work. It's not one size fits all. So, and secondly, when we're pulling things out personally, it's good for the community to be engaged in what's happening in the council office. Otherwise, then we shouldn't be here. if we're not having a debate or discussion for any reason. So I disagree with Alder Evers, and I think we should be mindful of other alders who are not necessarily would have time to call either the staff or the sponsoring alder. So we need to be mindful about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Healy. I appreciate your comments and a reminder that everyone has a different way of approaching the work. I think if I could, from my perspective as council president, add that there's a lot, I guess I'm finding out, and should you all be in this seat in the future, all of the back work that goes into preparing the agenda, making sure that all of the policy that's supposed to come is tracked and followed, and it's at the right meeting, and it's referred, and there's a lot of work, and obviously staff have been tasked with the timeline in order to make sure that we are receiving the agenda around noon on Friday. And so, you know, what we've heard in discussion that some alders don't work on the weekends, some are juggling family responsibilities, and everyone is doing the best they can in the part-time capacity that they are. But I think if I could step into Alder Evers' defense a bit, I think it was a reminder of the multiple ways to garner that. And I think also with 20 of us, possibly, like, we have our Alder, our mentor program, and obviously we've built and are hoping to continue creating, enhancing the connections that we have as a body. And so a reminder to us all that we are one of 20 and that we can also lean into our peers. I really appreciated Alder Evers' suggestion of reaching out to not just city staff, but also the sponsoring alder, because often, as we heard tonight from Vice President Figueroa Cole, as a sponsor of the, for instance, changing the ordinance for notification, a lot of times that context obviously isn't going to be in text and before us. And so, yes, keeping in mind everybody learns differently and approaches the work differently, but I think there's an intentionality on how we can be efficient and most effective as a body. And I think, I can't speak for everyone, of course, but as the council president, I think the last couple of meetings, I fielded a lot of frustration and honestly some measures that I would call drastic of alders contemplating certain resolutions or ordinance change in order for us to have efficient and effective meetings while also taking community engagement in mind. And so another reminder of the city stream and the hardworking IT staff that make sure that we are in hybrid capacity and recording and have all of these meetings in the cloud or available to watch. I know that there's a certain alder in council leadership that is really good about being able to snip right to the point of, here's the point of conversation on a specific policy. So there are tools, and so I would just remind us that we do represent the body, we represent ourselves, and we represent our districts, but our actions carry and follow us all as a body. And so I think it's generally, how can we continue to do the good work of the city, make sure that we're engaging, make sure that we're being respectful of everyone's time, not just our public, but our staff members that are making sure that they're attending in order to answer any questions, comments that come up from us. So thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a soapbox there, but I didn't see any other hands and just wanted to make that comment as council president, so. Looks like Attorney Haas may have something to weigh in on.
Well, if this discussion is over, that's fine. I was just going to provide a reminder that the agenda item is future agenda item, so we shouldn't go into in depth on discussion. We
Thank
should
you,
just
Attorney
be discussing whether or not to put it on the future agenda.
All right, well, I guess I'll ask a question there since it's our last. Alder Evers, based on the discussion that I just went into and your request of a memo, do you still want to continue with that as being a future agenda item, or do you feel like you have enough context where maybe that could resolve itself in other formats?
I think that, you know, I'm not going to answer the criticism or the disagreement from Alder Wahele. I agree with the city attorney that if we put this on the agenda, I'm not asking for hard and fast rules. I'm simply asking for suggestions and encouragements that ways that would make our meetings go more smoothly and respect staff time when possible. And I agree, it's not always possible, but let's not discuss it now. Let's find the time in a future agenda.
All right. Thank you for that, Alder Evers, and I'll make a mental note that since, at least because we have the continuation of a conversation of the ethical code of conduct, that I will make some comments at our next CCEC meeting regarding the specific feedback Alder Evers just lended. So, thank you, and thanks for the reminder, Attorney Haas. Seeing that we have a pretty stacked.
Move to adjourn.
All right, unless I see or hear otherwise, I will take that as accepted to move to adjournment. Thank you all.